Hello guys, Crispy here, welcome back to another video. In this one, my friends, we're going to be taking a look at the Geekom XT12 Pro, which is a very tiny mini PC, as you can see, with a Core i9-12900H processor. Yes, that's inside of this thing. And we're going to pair this with an external GPU to see how it performs in some games. But first, let's talk about the Geekom XT12 Pro. As I told you, it has a 14-core, 20-threaded Intel Core i9-12900H CPU, which is locked to 35 watts out of the box, so it doesn't heat up a lot. But with the help of Intel XTU, you can set the power limit to unlimited, and then it will use around 45 to 50 watts when using all cores. However, in games, it stays at around 30 to 45 watts most of the time still. So there's a little bit of extra wattage that you can pull out of this thing if you really need it. And I guess we'll need that because of the 4070 Ti Super. It also comes with 32 gigabytes of DDR4, 3200 MHz RAM in dual channel, a 1TB SSD, and Intel Xe graphics with 96 execution units for the graphics solution. By the way, if you are interested in Intel Xe graphics performance, I'll leave a link down in the description. I have tested it extensively here in the channel, but today we're taking a look at eGPU performance. So for that, I'm pairing this mini PC and using one of its two USB 4 connections with a Razer Core X external GPU enclosure. Inside of it, I have installed that RTX 4070 Ti Super, which is the best GPU that I own that fits inside of this thing because it's a dual slot enclosure here. This Razer Core X supports Thunderbolt 3 and it connects to your mini PC or laptop through a Thunderbolt 3 connection or USB 4 or Thunderbolt 4. By the way, Thunderbolt 4 and 3 both have the same 40 gigabit per second connection speed, and that's the limiting factor of performance because this RTX 4070 Ti Super can run PCI Express 4.0 times 16, yet with this enclosure, it will be limited to PCI Express 3.0 times 4, and that's a massive reduction in bandwidth. Unfortunately, this is the easiest and most common way to use an eGPU with your system. There are also other ways through the PCI connections and stuff like that, but it involves taking the thing apart and connecting like a ribbon cables and so on. It's a little bit of a mess. This one is just plug and play and you have an external GPU to your disposal. And with all of that said, let's see if it's a good idea to pair something like this with something like this, which is like 3 times the size. And it's even thicker than the mini PC, look at that. That's crazy. Let's play some games, shall we? And just like that, we got our i9-12900H system right here with 32 gigs of RAM and the RTX 4070 Ti Super, which is also showing up here in Tech PowerUp's GPU-Z with that PCI Express 3.0 times 4 interface, which is very low for this GPU at least, and it will heavily limit the performance. I have also taken some averages and 1% lows from that system over there, which has a Ryzen 9 7950X3D, and I'll compare it a little bit whenever possible. Resizable bar is also disabled right there, unfortunately. I couldn't find a BIOS setting for it in this mini PC, and let's play some CS2 first. Alright, for CS2, I have unlocked the FPS with this console command right here, and I'll show you the settings now. I'm playing at 4K resolution to push that GPU as hard as it can, and the very high settings with 4 times MSAA. Alright, here we go, guys. Start counting our FPS, and we're getting 100 plus inside of the tunnel. GPU usage isn't maxing out here. Goodbye, sir. And the 1% lows are pretty low there, and that's because there is a bit of fluctuation there in that frame time graph. You can see some little tiny stutters happening every once in a while that are dropping our 1% lows. Those aren't really that noticeable, honestly. I'm running 120 Hz right here. I can barely notice anything wrong. And also keep in mind that this is all with the very high settings, so dropping a few settings here and there might actually improve things to the point where it doesn't stutter anymore. I'm definitely going to try that out a little bit later. Oh boy. Also, that CPU power is at 35 watts most of the time. That's because it is using like 30% of it. If it was at 100%, it would utilize 45. Okay, there we go. Let's try the AWP a little bit here. Okay. No. And there we go. It's finished. 136 FPS average and 61% lows is what we got here. Yeah, that's the massive reduction compared to a proper desktop PC, but it's still way better than integrated graphics, and it was a good experience overall. GG Al Crisp. I can't believe someone who watches our videos was actually in that server. That's awesome, dude. Right, now I have set it to 4K using the low settings with no FSR, so native resolution, and this is just to see how much better come on how much better the 1% lows will be on the low settings, and if it stutters a little bit less. Right now the frame time graph is pretty much the same as it used to be previously on the high settings. We still see some spikes here and there, pretty much the same size spikes as well. So I think in terms of stability, it is going to perform pretty much the same, you know, with a little bit higher 1% lows maybe, but yeah, overall it's gonna feel pretty much the same, guys. There we go. There we go. Another one down. So yeah, that's enough CS2. Let's move on to the next one. Next up is Apex Legends, and this one is way less CPU bound than CS2, so this is going to be interesting. We're playing at 4K maximum settings aside from this one right here, and to compare it as best as I can with the other PC where the 4070 Ti wasn't bandwidth limited, I am testing it here in the firing range, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing as I did previously. Now, previously, I was getting 181 FPS average and 78 1% lows. Now our averages, even with 99% GPU usage, no CPU bottleneck right here, are actually just slightly higher than the 1% lows previously. You can see that this is a huge difference because of that bandwidth limitation, guys. The power utilization on the GPU is also really low compared to what the 4070 Ti Super can do. It was higher in CS2, I believe. I'm not really sure though. But yeah, this is one of the extreme examples where you can see that bandwidth limitation making a huge difference. And I'm actually going to play an online match for a little bit like this. No. Oh, I'm gonna die. I think I'm gonna die. No. Please don't do this to me. Please don't. But there's another one. There's another one shooting at us, guys. Oh, this is terrible. This is absolutely terrible. No. Well, the performance is actually decent once again. Not 4070 Ti super decent. I have actually tested this GPU separately in an Apex Legends video. Testing like lots of resolutions and stuff, and it was a much faster experience than this. Again, it was in the 160s, I think, on average. God, come on, please pick it up. I keep pressing F for some reason. I think in the other PC I got the keybinds switched up a little bit. Oh boy. How am I still alive, dude? That's crazy. Jesus Christ! God damn it! Beautiful gameplay, wasn't it, guys? Yes, we can see a bit different of an area now. What the hell? More people. I'm playing solos here. Come on. Not that I am going to be a very good player. But I'm not a good player because I just suck at this game, basically. Apparently. Well, not too much, actually. That was decent, right? Can I get this one as well, please? That would be great. Please. Thank you. Yes, we got another one, guys. This doesn't happen very often in Apex. So Apex, good. And it's impressive that it's more stable than CS2. Now I'm playing Red Dead Redemption 2 at 4K resolution using the ultra settings. It's just the preset here all the way to the right. And I disabled motion blur and also lowered the water physics to 1 out of 5. And these are the settings. It could go higher, it could go lower, it could go optimized as well. But these I found to run pretty well with the 4070 Ti Super with 87 FPS average and I believe 74 1% lows. Let me just check here. 87 average and 73 1% lows. So let's go, Roach. And well, right away you can see a huge reduction once again in the performance, but thankfully it is a smooth experience still. So it's still good, you know, but it's a little bit of a shame that we can't really get 60 plus FPS 100% of the time. It's also not a CPU bottleneck in this one. This game doesn't really need need a CPU that's super fast, you know, even like an i7 second gen can actually handle it, at least over here with around 60 frames per second. But if you take a look at the GPU utilization, it isn't maxing out. It's at 94% right there. Sometimes it goes up to like 95, but that's exactly the same thing as I've seen with my 7950X 3D system back there. So this is basically how this game runs at the moment with NVIDIA GPUs. It's not due to anything else. There's Bob over there. First time that we've seen Bob in this video. Can we actually... Nope. Get over here, Bob. You're not gonna be safe, my friend. I am not gonna leave you there. There we go. So we're going to the Strawberry Town, which is one of the most intensive towns in this game, mainly because of the river coming through it and the water physics being the most intensive setting in the game. But since I lowered down the water physics to 1 out of 5, it shouldn't really be dropping too much from 50 frames per second. At least it didn't in that system over there. So let's see it. Here we go. 51, 52 frames per second. A little bit of a stutter there as we approach the city, and that GPU usage is going down. Look at that, 70-something%. Holy crap, could it be a CPU bottleneck? I don't think so, because even a second-gen i5, when I tested it in this game, in the big city of Saint Denis, it did fine at 30 plus all of the time. It could be the bandwidth limitation once again, guys. Anyway, that's it for Red Dead Redemption 2. It is playable. It is much better than with integrated graphics, even with the drops into the 30s around towns like these. But you might want to drop some of the settings to achieve 40 plus all of the time at least, or like at least 30 plus 100% of the time without any drops, because it was dropping into the low 30s sometimes and it was having a little bit of too much stutter around here. Still, that was on ultra settings, so now I'm gonna set it to like low with ultra texture still, restart the game and check it out in this area again. Okay, 90% GPU utilization over there, or 80%, sometimes it's dropping now, so I guess maybe it's the CPU's fault. You know, it could be the CPU bottleneck coupled with the bandwidth limitation as well, making things just drop a lot, you know. So yeah, it could be a lot of things in this system, unfortunately. You know what the best part of testing a couple of settings is? We get to kill Bob again. Yeah, shut up, Bob, shut up. I know it hurts. It's supposed to hurt. Okay, we're in Strawberry Town now. 40-ish FPS, already dropping into the 40s, 30s again. I guess if you walk around instead of ride around with Roach, it is going to be a little bit better, because previously we saw like 40-ish FPS all of the time, even here. Now it drops into the 30s sometimes. Again, it's far from what a 4070 Ti Super can do, so we're heavily limited by that Thunderbolt 3 interface once again. Alright guys, now we have Horizon Forbidden West, a new release on PC, 4K resolution, DLSS is set to quality, and we're using the very high settings, and this is definitely far different from what I experienced earlier today with a 4070 Ti Super, guys. I was getting 84 FPS average with 61% lows in this same area. And GPU usage is nearly maxed out, so that means that the CPU isn't really the bottleneck here. At least most of the time it isn't. Right now it might be a little bit. But yeah, looking in that direction, you can see almost full GPU usage and 29 frames per second. It's once again heavily bandwidth limited, guys, and it absolutely sucks in Horizon Forbidden West. Jesus Christ, like this is terrible. This is probably the worst so far, right? Now I'm gonna try enabling some frame generation right here with DLSS quality still and very high settings, and that certainly improves things, as you can see, 40-ish FPS right now, but that frame time graph, dude, that's absolutely awful. Now we got 99% GPU utilization, by the way, with 130, 120-ish watts of power. So it's consuming about half of what it should be consuming. Oh my gosh, just because, again, of that limitation from Thunderbolt 3. Next, we have Stutter Night. Imagine how stuttery this will be. Holy crap, look at this. Okay, let's go over the settings first. I'm starting at 4K res using DirectX 12, which is usually really smooth, especially after the latest update. TAA is being utilized, epic settings, but I disabled nanite, and that also disables the lumen stuff, which is basically ray tracing. Okay, so this is not too bad. I honestly was expecting it to be way worse. Right now, the frame time graph isn't perfect, but I can't really feel anything wrong with it by turning the mouse around and stuff. But unfortunately, we're already dropping from 60 FPS, and previously in the other PC with the proper bandwidth and so on, it wasn't dropping from 60 FPS. It wasn't even dropping from 70 frames per second. It was getting like 80 to 90 most of the time around this area as well. And apparently, instead of those 80 to 90 FPS, we're getting like around 60 frames. Sometimes it drops down into like the low 50s, but it's not too terrible, honestly. The stuttering is about the same as usual, honestly, although the frame time graph is a little bit more weird than usual as well. But, you know, this is stutter night after all. It will stutter in every system out there. So this means that it's not too bad of an experience. I could definitely play like this. It still feels good, but it's not a competitive experience, you know. If you had a proper desktop PC with no bandwidth limitations and even something like a 4070 instead of 4070 Ti Super, you would be capable of achieving high refresh rates. Not at 4K, granted, but yeah, if you lower it to 1080p in this system, it will just become CPU bound. Oh boy, wait, but there we go. Look at that. We're actually doing this right now. Okay. Hello. Oh my god, what the hell is that? Why is he throwing at us? What? That was so weird. I thought I had him. Well, I don't know about you guys, but I miss killing Bob already. So let's go to Cyberpunk 2077 4K resolution using the Ray Tracing Ultra preset. I'll leave DLSS on performance, which is the auto setting. Frame generation is enabled. I'm going to enable ray reconstruction as well. And I'll disable the motion blur as well as these two settings here. Let's try this out. Okay, we're getting just below 60 FPS once again. God damn it. This is a recurring thing, guys. It's always below 60 FPS for some reason. What the heck? Unless the game is like Apex Legends, for example, and CS2. But yeah, this one, even with frame generation, it can't save it, guys. Look at that, 50-ish FPS. And this means that with the frame generation enabled, this is having the input lag of about half of the frames that we're getting, which makes the game not really playable, honestly. So yeah, kind of underwhelming results once again, guys, especially coming from the 101 FPS average and a nice 69 on the 1% lows with a proper gaming desktop PC. And yes, I know, like the Ryzen 9 7950X3D that I tested these 4070 Ti with, 4070 Super Ti Super with, yeah, that's much faster, of course, but remember, for the price of a mini PC, a GPU, and the GPU enclosure, you could find something that won't bottleneck a 4070 Ti either. Like maybe a Ryzen 7 7700X, for example, and have a much better experience. Still, if you find yourself with a mini PC, I guess this isn't terrible compared to integrated graphics especially, but it's still not amazing. I'm gonna disable frame generation just to test it out without it a little bit here. Yeah, it still gets 30s. GPU usage is still not maxing out for some reason. Maybe it's the ray tracing coupled with really low bandwidth, you know? I don't know. I'm actually going to disable the ray tracing now and play on like high settings, okay? Without DLSS as well. This is it. I'm going to disable this and motion blur once again. High settings preset, no DLSS. Yeah, it's around the same, guys. Interesting. Okay, maybe it's a little bit more stable. That GPU usage is still around the same. Goodbye, Bob! Okay, now we killed him. Good stuff. Yeah, this is terrible. These are basically the FPS that the Intel Xe graphics gets at 720p lowest settings. Now you'll be able to play at 4K highest settings, but it still drops into the 20s at times, so it's definitely not ideal. But let's enable frame generation as a last resort here on the high settings as well. Maybe it's gonna smooth things out. And we're back to like the same FPS as we started. 50-ish FPS. Helldivers 2 is up next. We're playing at 4K native using the ultra settings, and well, I can already say this is definitely worse than I expected, especially here. It was getting like 60 plus all of the time in this area, and now we're in the 40s with full GPU utilization, you know. It's not CPU bound over here, of course. And we have arrived. We're getting 40 FPS, 30 sometimes. And before, we were getting 69 FPS on average, very nice, and 59 1% lows at exactly the same settings, and also in this exact same world. Now, Helldivers 2 is known for being really consistent in terms of its frame time graph, so I'm not really expecting much stuttering happening here, even with the bandwidth limitation that we have right now, and with around 40 FPS, that is a decent experience. Oh my god, that's a big one. Okay, I don't like this. I don't like this. Come on, please die with 4 grenades, please. He didn't die with 4 grenades, but he is turning his ass on us. Let's go. We have a chance to get him bastard. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. Wait, do I need to heal myself? I don't think so. Dropping down into the low 30s at times. GPU usage isn't really maxed out all of the time, but I have tried it at 1080p before I started making this video with this system right here, and at 1080p it goes up to like 60 FPS, so like 50 to 60 most of the time, so it's not really a CPU bottleneck either in this case. Come on, damn it! I'm out of ammo! I'm out of ammo! Die! Thank you. Now let's try to lower it down to that 1080p resolution that I told you about, still on the ultra settings, and as you can see, well, it seemed like it was gonna get 70s and 60s, but we're down into the 40s at times again. Oh my god, I can't do anything, holy crap. But again, it's very underwhelming performance, and the 4070 Ti Super at 1080p resolution in this title, ultra settings, it was capable of getting like 100 to 120 frames per second, even more than that actually. It was in the 140s, I think. It's not great, but it's playable. It still has a lot of stuttering though, which I didn't expect in Helldivers for sure. Next up is Call of Duty Warzone. We're playing this one at 4K using DLSS quality, the extreme settings preset without depth of field. That's the only change that I made. So, surprisingly, this isn't too bad. It does dip down into the 50s as you can see sometimes, but again, we're playing at max settings, 4K resolution with DLSS quality, which looks really good here in this 32-inch monitor that I'm using, and most of the time it's actually above 60 frames per second. Now, when the full bandwidth is available with a proper gaming PC, you'd be seeing like 100, 110 frames per second running around here, and 70s at the minimum while looking at the water. And the water is pretty much the most intensive thing here in Call of Duty Warzone. Thankfully, the bandwidth here doesn't really affect FPS by too much by going near water, you know, so at least there's that. It doesn't really dip from 60 yet, unless you start shooting at it. Then it does drop into the 40s, as you could see there. But yeah, it is a somewhat stable experience. It's not absolutely terrible. 1% lows are pretty low there, indicating some stuttering, but honestly, it doesn't feel too bad to me, guys. Okay, definitely felt bad there. Still, if you want to play this game, I guess it will be possible to do so. Come on. Oh, that's close. That's close. That's close. He's almost dead. Oh, he died. He killed himself. Wait. Hello? Hello, kind sir? We got him. Nice. It's somewhat stable of an experience, still a bit lackluster, of course, compared to the real deal, but hey, 1,000 times better, I guess, than Intel Xe graphics, so there's that at the same time, right? Alright, next up is Dota 2 at 4K using the highest settings, and I really hope this one runs very smoothly, because it's an older title, it shouldn't really be that intensive or bandwidth limited, you know? Right now, I did expect this, and it's basically CPU bound all of the time. It's a 12900 range with a 4070 Ti Super in Dota 2, very easy game game to run on the GPU side of things, so of course we're CPU bound. But thankfully though, it's very, very stable of an experience. It's much better than integrated graphics once again. Okay, the Dire are pushing middle here. I don't think the Radiant care at all. They just gave them a tower. I probably chose the worst game to watch, but look at this. Finally some things are happening. And they're not really intensive, of course, because we're CPU bound all of the time, so FPS don't really drop by all that much when things are happening. Yeah, you could play this game competitively, I guess, if you wanted to. I mean, I have friends who have like 7,000 hours in this game, and they play with drops into the 50s, so... Now I'm playing GTA 5 right now, an older title that should run well even with the bandwidth limitations. We're at 4K resolution, 2x MSAA, using the highest settings aside from post effects, and over on the advanced settings everything is turned on as well. And as you can see, the game is indeed very smooth, but that power utilization is pretty much the same as it was in the previous games. Now if you're wondering about the FPS numbers from the 4070 Ti with the Ryzen 9 CPU, which was also at 99% GPU usage, by the way. This is not CPU bound whatsoever, as you can see. Even here, which is usually a little bit less GPU bound, so it becomes more CPU bound, of course, because there's nothing to render on the GPU, basically. It's still not lowering down that GPU utilization by too much, so there's no CPU bottleneck. And in the other PC, I got 120 FPS on average and 72 1% lows. This is quite a big drop right here. We're getting 90 on average and 56 1% lows because of some little spikes that happen every now and again in that frame time graph. Now the thing is, remember I told you we got 72 FPS 1% lows with the other system, and over here we're already dropping into the 50s and even low 50s at times. Holy crap. Now let's see Jack. Jack, hello buddy? How are you? Oh, there he is. Look at him. Beautiful Jack running over the hill, of course, as usual. Yeah, you do you, buddy. But, well, that bandwidth limitation is definitely showing right here around the bushes. It drops down into the 50s. Bobby's not here. Oh, no. We gotta go up there. There he is. Which one of you is Bob? I don't care. Let's go. Goodbye, Bobs. Oh, yes. Alright, now that our job is done here in GTA 5, let's move on to the next one. Next is Ghost of Tsushima. We're playing this one at 4K using DLSS quality and the highest settings. And needless to say, the 4070 Ti Super is capable of a lot more than 20-something FPS in this game, right? I will post a video on it soon in the channel, by the way, but it usually gets around like 80 frames per second using these settings. And over here, it's in the 20s. I'm not sure if the CPU is the bottleneck. Probably not, actually, because this isn't really that CPU intensive of a title, you know. It's just the actual bandwidth limitation once again. You know, I'm sure the 12900H, even at 30 to 40 watts of power usage, can do much better than 30 FPS here. After all, for the minimum requirements, they actually recommend an i3-10100 dual core with 4 threads, which should be similar to the E-cores in performance-wise of the 12900H. And yeah, this is it. It's completely unplayable, obviously, with these FPS. This isn't a game that you should play with eGPUs. Okay, so this one is pretty bad, guys. This is Forza Horizon 5 at 4K using TAA maximum settings, and I have tried it previously in an eGPU setup with a 4070, not the Ti Super, and at 1440p instead of 4K. But yeah, if you're standing still, you can see that it's actually a smooth experience, right? Kind of. But as soon as you start driving, it starts stuttering like crazy. Well, it's not, but yeah, you can see it right there. And it's not because we're in the city area, even in like countryside areas and stuff like that are way less intensive. This happens, and it's a completely unstable and unplayable experience because of this. This is all due to that bandwidth limitation once again, and yeah, it happened with a different mini PC already, different CPU, an i9-13900H, I think, and a different GPU as well. It was exactly the same crap, so... Forza is a game that runs extremely well, usually, and it's buttery smooth. Jeez, I can't drive like this, but I can't even drive with good FPS, so yeah. But yeah, in an eGPU enclosure with Thunderbolt 3 or Thunderbolt 4, it's crap. It's really, really bad. It's one of the worst games, actually, in terms of stability, which is weird, again. And well, guys, it is conclusion time. Should you buy an external GPU enclosure for your mini PC or laptop? Definitely not, if you couldn't answer it in your own. Now, there will be a couple of exceptions, of course. Older titles or less intensive ones will run fine. So I guess if you could find a Thunderbolt 3 or 4 external GPU enclosure and like an RX 580 or a GTX 1060 or 1070 maybe for really cheap as a combo, you know, you could be set for a good experience in those older titles. But the thing is, for the vast majority of games, that was not the case. The eGPU enclosure, because of the bandwidth limitation, was providing a terrible experience. Maybe things will get much better when we see external GPU enclosures with Thunderbolt 5, but for now, what we have is not really that great, at least for the more intensive titles, of course. If you're buying a mini PC plus all of this, just spend your money elsewhere, grab a desktop, maybe a mini ITX system, which will still be small, you know, not mini like this, obviously. This is way too small, actually. But yeah, it will be much more capable than this system for gaming. Now, talking a bit about the mini PC itself, it retails for $700, and I've been seeing a lot of reviews saying, well, that's not too bad of a price for a 12th gen i9 system and stuff like that, but there are way better options out there. I can also not really recommend this system. Even Geekom has the mini IT13 right here. It has a configuration with i9-13900H, which overheats and you can't really unlock the power limit, and the i7 version is actually quite good. It can sustain a much higher power draw than this and higher frequencies as well. It has a newer architecture at the same time. Both of them have DDR4, which is not really that great, honestly. I would have liked to see DDR5. It seems like they sacrificed that extra headroom that they had with the cooling solution on this for extra power, you know? And yeah, they went with a smaller chassis, which is exactly the opposite that I was recommending them to do. I would like to see a bigger mini PC that could sustain higher TDPs and higher frequencies. That would be great, Geekom. It's pretty impressive, once again, that they put an i9 in this. Unfortunately, out of the box, it runs at 35 watts, which is not ideal, but you can unlock it, and once you unlock it, CPU performance is quite decent for video editing and stuff like that, rendering and so on, Photoshop. This is only for people who really want that super tiny footprint right here that you can actually fit in your pocket, you know, with an i9 CPU inside. Still, if you're interested in buying it, there's a link down below in the description with some discounts. They will have the anniversary soon and have more discounts as well. And that's been it for this one. Thank you very much for watching this video. Thanks to Geekom for sponsoring it. And yeah, external GPUs are still not there yet, at least with that TB3 or TB4 interface. PCIe is another story. It might be much better, and it's something that we need to check out in the future. So stay tuned in. Catch you in the next one. Love you all. Bye-bye.